My talk is going to be super packed about a topic that I think it is relevant in today's news. And I'll try to go as fast as possible through all of this stuff. Hopefully, it's going to be interesting for you. And I really, really hope I'm not going to be that late. So I'm really sorry for the organizers about that. So let's go. You might know that this Monday there was like an interesting day. It was Guy Fawkes Night, and what makes this Guy Fawkes Night event really interesting is that they tried to blow up the parliament. There was a gang of guys, and the most famous one was Guy Fawkes, and is the third to the right, and basically they tried to blow up the parliament. And what's not so known about this guy is that he also said a famous quote, and he said that who owns the information owns the world. And we're gonna get back to this one a little bit later. So, my name is Dan Dimitar. I graduated from Imperial College almost 4 years ago. Since then, I'm a security researcher at Kaspersky Lab, and you might know as the guy who developed the open source distributed Yara scanner, Clara, which my company, Kaspersky Lab, we open sourced it this year. So that's a little bit about myself, a little bit about my team. We are called Global Research and Analysis Team, and basically we are focused on highly advanced attacks. We have been founded like almost 10 years ago. This year we celebrated our 10th anniversary, and since then we are tasked with finding and fighting against advanced attacks finding advanced attacks against banks, governments, power plants, and everything that is like critical infrastructure and so on. But, you know, I would like to start asking a question, like if we Google search war, and if we search for images of war on Google, you might actually find out this kind of stuff, or this stuff. You might find looks pretty normal, you know. It seems pretty normal for like war images. And this is what we know, and this is what we expect to find when we're searching for war on Google. What about if we're searching for the info war? So you might have heard a bit about info war, but Google definitely didn't hear about InfoWar, or at least this is Google's definition of InfoWar. And it's kind of like a silly stuff. Like, for example, this grenade with some keyboard keys, and there's like this plane dropping some cursor, I don't know, like some cursors here. Like, you know, it's not that relevant, and it actually doesn't make sense, you know, for all of us. But then actually, instead, InfoWar might look like this. So it might happen around us, it might happen right now, and it's all around us. It could possibly be all around us. It can be like, it might be happening at the DefCamp right now, and people don't realize it. It's like really close to us. And I think this is very important because InfoWar, it's not something that people are actually taking care of or like caring that much about this one. So, okay, you might ask yourself, fine, if the InfoWar is here, what's next? Well, we defined InfoWar within Kaspersky Lab having 3 components, and those 3 components are the cyber espionage, cyber sabotage, and mass opinion manipulation. Where 2 components are using malware, the cyber espionage and sabotage, whereas those 2 components are using malware, the third one is actually mass opinion manipulation. And we are pretty good in those 2 items. But on the third one, actually, we're not so good. We're not doing so good. So I said, okay, fine. I would like to research this topic, and I'd like to present you my findings. But before we do that, before we go to the present, we have to go a little bit in the past. We have to understand why and when, why, and how some of the things happened. So I'm not going to go like super in depth, like from the ancient Rome or like from the ancient Syria or whatever, but instead we're going to go a little bit we're going to focus on the Cold War period. And I would like to ask if you know who this guy is. And I'm not talking about the dead guy on the left. I'm talking about the guy in the middle. Anybody knows who this guy is? Okay, what about this one? Like he's the same guy? Cool. So, Ioan Mihai Pacepa. And I think there wasn't any better introduction to my presentation here in Bucharest rather than talking about Ioan Mihai Pacepa, which was one of the Romanian spies who defected to America, and he's still alive. And basically, he wrote a lot of information about, he wrote some books about disinformation, and his other book is called Red Horizons. So if you haven't read his books, I actually recommend you reading those ones. I didn't read Red Horizons yet, so I would like to read it as well. I just skimmed it a bit. But he basically said something, and he scratched the surface of what we nowadays call desinformatia. So, desinformatia, defined by this fine gentleman here, who was the director of Department X. Department X of the Department of Disinformation from the East German Foreign Intelligence. So this guy said that our friends in Moscow, they call it desinformatia. The Americans are calling it active measures, and it's my favorite activity. So Eastern Germans were like very good at disinformation, and we know it at all. But Pacepa also said in his book that if you're good at with disinformation, you're good with anything. You can get away with anything. And I think this is actually pretty cool. In his book, he also says that Stalin himself coined this term of disinformation, which is actually itself a disinformation. And this is why, because he says that Stalin wanted to give it a more Latin root, disinformation, which basically comes from French, instead of giving it a Slavic root. So the term itself, it's actually called it's actually disinforming the term itself. Well, honestly, I'm not so sold on this theory, mostly because Pacepa, in his Red Horizons book, he kind of didn't write all of things were true. For example, he said that Ceausescu every day Ceausescu was using a new suit, and then at the end of the day he was burning that suit. Well, historic sources tell us that that wasn't true. So I would take with a grain of salt what Pacepa said in his book. And of course, put yourself in his shoes. Like he went to the Americans. He must have written something bad about the Russians. Okay, so I would like to ask you some questions, and you'll have to tell me which of them you think are true. So first of all, is AIDS was created in a lab, the Earth is flat, Napoleon was short, we eat banana clones, and Einstein failed at maths. Who believes that all of these statements are true? Okay, who believes that 4 of the statements are true? What about 3? Oh, 3, we have some, okay. What about 2? We have some more. 1 statement is true? Okay, we have some other. No, none of the statements are true? Okay, so I'm sorry to disappoint, only 1 statement is true, and this one is that we eat cloned bananas. So actually, it's a funny trivia, is that if there was a new bacteria, new fungus that would affect the actual strain of bananas right now, all of our banana population would be dead. So be careful with bananas. Well, why did you consider that the other statements were also true? Well, first of all, there was this myth of Napoleon was short. But actually, when his height was measured, it was measured in 5 feet 2 inches, which is indeed short, but it was French feet. It wasn't British feet. Actually, he was 1.7. So there's this slight difference between British feet and French feet. And he was 1.7. He was quite tall, I would say so. Einstein failed at maths. Also, this was debunked by Einstein himself when they asked him, hey, did you fail at math? Because people are saying that, and he was like, no, what the heck? I knew I was pretty good when I was 15 years old, and I was I mastered different differential and integral calculus back then. And this makes sense now because he was like a genius. He was genius in physics. And it doesn't make sense that he failed maths because maths, you need maths for physics. So all of this kind of stuff are the core components of active miere. And if you don't know Russian, this means active measures. And let's see what active measures actually mean. And we see here from the Wikipedia source, active measures is a Soviet term for the action of political warfare, actually collecting intelligence and producing politically correct assessments. And also active measures range from media manipulations to special actions involving various degrees of violence. So basically, this is one of the definitions. If we look in a research that was published last year by the London School of Economics, they also define the fact that active measures can include a combination of white, gray, and black propaganda. And then you might ask me like, hey Dan, what's this like white, gray, and black propaganda? Well, white propaganda is information that comes from known sources. So, for example, we might have like a news outlet that is spreading propaganda, or we might have like leaflets that are being dropped on the battlefield. This is like white propaganda. Black propaganda comes from unknown sources. And this is more interesting, because, for example, you might have like, for example, radio stations that are supporting the anti-Soviet movement. But actually, those radio stations are spreading propaganda against Soviets. But actually, those stations are controlled by Moscow, are controlled by the Russians. And basically what they do, they try to subvert, they try to delay the people, they try to force them to not be so organized. So basically it's a way to dismantle groups, it's a way to block people to achieve their goal. And of course, gray propaganda, it's like, it's more interesting because, you know the source, but you don't know for a fact that it's working for a government or a state directly. So for example, when the Korean War happened, Russians started these talks or conferences about world peace. And those conferences were actually looking good at the beginning, and they attracted a lot of attention. They attracted the attention of like high-profile persons like Pablo Picasso, for example. He joined this movement. But little did they know that actually the main purpose of those conferences was to actually put the blame on the Americans, to make them look bad. So basically, you present a good cause, but actually your motive is bad intention. So let's see the cookbook of active measures. And again, in their research, we see that you have like front organizations, agents of influence, infiltrating media, use fake stories and use forgeries in order to promote your hidden agenda and in order to be able to make people act or believe as you want. So this is pretty good, this is pretty good. And then like, let's have some examples. And I mentioned before AIDS, and then this is actually a controversy, even now, that AIDS was human-made. And I spoke with a lot of medics, and all of them told me that it's currently, like, they don't believe that it's possible to produce AIDS in a lab, but rather it was a mutation. It was like another mutations that we've seen in our country as well. So that was kind of a mutation. And there was this document, secret document, that was released. And basically this operation was called, the Americans are saying that this operation was called the infection operation. And basically you can check this report by this guy Thomas. And basically they're saying, when does this campaign start? When did this campaign start? And we have it here. On the 17th of July, 1983, there was a paper published in Pakistan saying, AIDS may invade India, mystery disease caused by US experiments. They also continue and saying, I'm really sorry, I'm not sure if you can see it well. They say, um, AIDS is believed to be results of the Pentagon experiments. And that was it. Then, from that paper from Pakistan, it was then referenced by other news media in the world, and this information spread along. What's also interesting is that by the 1980s, this new syndrome, the AIDS syndrome, was not well known. It didn't even have a name. It had a name 2 years later. And the Americans didn't actually know how to handle that one. It was pretty new for them at that time. And the Soviets actually managed to find this moment and to take advantage of this moment. So this is pretty okay. Nobody died from this fake news. But then you might actually have fatal consequences. So this is another another example. And basically, in 1968, there was a paper that was called "Who's Who in the CIA," and this paper was distributed in the East German. And basically, what this paper said, in a nutshell, this is a list of CIA agents, and half of the names were real, half of the names were faked. Well, what happened 2 years later? A guy whose name was identical, similar to the list of the fake names that appeared in that list was killed, mostly because his name appeared in that fake list. So basically, there was a terrorist who killed him. Furthermore, there's another example of an event that happened at Mecca. Basically, there was an explosion, and a lot of people were killed. And basically, the Soviets said, okay, this sounds like a good idea. Let's spread a rumor. They spread a rumor saying that this explosion was plotted by the Americans and Israelis. What happened next? I'm sorry, I don't think you can see it. The rumor sparked an attack by the Soviet Union. The US embassy was attacked. One American was kidnapped. 2 Pakistani employees died. A Marine Corps was shot. And an American contractor has been left to burn to death from a rumor. That was it. You went to somebody and say, okay, that's a rumor, and that's it. And then all these people died. Cool. So, of course, in order to deploy these techniques, you need a lot of money. So how much money actually? Well, again, the publicly released paper, the one about AIDS, also says that in 1980s, a conservative CIA estimates puts the annual cost of Soviet active measures at $3 billion back in the 1980s per year, which is actually $9 billion in our money right now due to inflation every year. So this is how much the Russians were actually spending in order to promote their agenda and to use these active measures. That's pretty impressive. But, they were not the only ones. They were the most prominent, but not the only ones. The Americans were actually doing the same. So this is like a stamp from the Second World War propaganda, where they were depicting Hitler as this monster, and you should fight with your life the Nazi threat. And basically, this is the American way of doing active measures. This is like an airborne leaflet propaganda. So basically, it's a bomb. You load it up with propaganda, and you drop it. So it doesn't do any damage, but it just spreads a lot of leaflet. So this is actually this was used by the Americans. But I think you might actually know a better example of active measures used by the Americans. And I see a lot of people who are I think old enough to have heard of Radio Free Europe. And we can see that from again from a CIA document that was released to the public. They say here that this radio was actually pretty annoying the people the authorities from the Eastern Bloc. So because of that, they used 1,500 jamming stations in order to try to block it. Was it successful? No, because actually this radio was still broadcasting. But it's actually another interesting fact is that in this document that was sent from the American attaché at the Western Embassy to the Deputy Secretary of State, and you can see the link here, he basically says that It is regrettable that Radio Free Europe is still entirely financed by the USA and that the Europeans have failed to show financial interest. So basically he's saying, we're putting all the money and nobody else is putting, putting their money into this project, which is okay, which was pretty okay. But later he also says that, you know, apart from the fact that the German government grants the license for the European broadcasting station, there is no reason why Radio Free Europe should fall under German control. So basically, in other words, he's saying that, you know, we want people to give us money, to put money into this project, but we don't want to give out control over it. We want to control it ourselves, but it would be better if other states would actually put their money in the basket as well. If you want to read more about the CIA operation and the Radio Free Europe, this is the book you should read, and it's pretty interesting. Okay, so we talked about Russia, we talked about America. I'm really sorry, there's tons of other states that we can talk about, but I think I shouldn't miss the opportunity of talking about Romania. So, in Romania, I wasn't born in the communist period, so I've heard, so I've read also in the news, that there were like food rations. So people were actually kind of starving. It was a kind of a hard period, and you had rations. You had like limited amount of food that you could get every month. So a food ration looks like this. Basically, it tells your name, it tells like how many family members you have, and how much food did you buy every month. The interesting fact is that people were actually trusting the scientific community. So everything that was like science, everything that was like researchers, they were trusted. So basically, the Romanian government asked some scientists to write this report saying that it's healthy for grown-up men to only eat 1 kilogram of chicken every month. And this was actually convenient because it was actually the amount of chicken that they received during every month. So basically, they used scientific facts, which, of course, like you could eat a lot more chicken than 1 kilogram. They used the scientific community to produce some facts that people actually believed in order to justify their own actions, their own government actions. So, you know, this was in the past. So in the present, it's a bit different, but not so much. So let's look at this guy, Noah Tavlin. He has like an interesting YouTube video. And he basically discusses the idea that currently, in the present, we have access to a lot of information. And this is good and bad at the same time. We have access to like tons of applications. We have instant notifications on our mobile phones. We receive our parking ticket instantly. We can download everything almost instantly. We want everything that's really fast, immediately. I want to get something. I should get it right now. And he also said that because of that, our desire for quick answers may overpower the desire to be certain of their validity. In other words, if you're looking for something and it's right there at arm's length and you get the result as fast as possible, then you might not be tempted to actually fact check that thing. You might not willing to go over the process of checking if that fact is true or not to see if actually that makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And this is what fake news is all about. People not fact-checking their other sources. Of course, there are more other subtle types of fake news, like remember gray propaganda. He also presents in his video, which is like a 3-minute video, so please watch it, it's amazing. Circular reporting. Circular reporting, you might have heard about it, basically says that you have a publication A, B, C, D, and E. Publication A does like an original content, publishes something, and then B references A, C, B, and then D and C, and so on. Well, this is all okay. Well, it's not okay from my point of view, but this is all okay, except when publication A publishes something that is fake. If this publication A publishes a fake news, then the entire chain will actually publish and reference fake news. And the problem is that if this chain is long enough, the actually news might become true. And this is the problem, this is another problem, because people nowadays, they actually tend to act predictably, if I can say so. So, for example, what are the three main reasons why fake news are actually happening? Well, first of all, because of tribalism or partisanship. And this is when happens when you have a view and somebody else comes with the same view as yours comes along, and you're more willing to accept his answers, you're more willing to accept his proposals if that person is similar to you. And you're more willing to reject or to not be involved in a debate with a person that has different views that you have. And this is very important. Basically, it's like, I call it the laziness of people. You have to have debate with people with different views than you have. Else, you're gonna be in a bubble. And there's like a lot of talks about these bubbles nowadays. Confirmation bias. If you are sure, or you are, like if you're sure of something, and somebody else comes and reinforces that, confirms that thing, you're more likely to have your own confirmation reinforced. So basically, this means that you're not willing to talk to other people that have different views. You're actually going to be accepting people. You're going to make friends with people with the same views that you have. And of course, the dangers of debunked ideas is another issue. An idea, a fake news that stays long enough, it might become true. So we have this example with the vaccines. There was one paper, 1998, that said vaccines cause autism. It wasn't debunked at that specific moment, so it stayed on and on. It caught on, and now we have this entire anti-vaccine movement, and you know the rest. So just from that paper, which was later proven to be false, so that paper is like totally bollocks, but it doesn't matter. It's true because a lot of time passed. So, another approach of active measures, and I find it really interesting to look at the Eurobarometer survey. And this survey says that most of the citizens are happy with their country being part of EU. And then if you look at the percentage of how many citizens are unhappy with their country being part of EU, we can see like UK, which is the first 22% of people in UK are not happy about being part of EU. And the second country is Romania, actually. It is 21%. The third country is Greece. So, this is quite shocking. But then, this barometer says that the threat of fake news and disinformation in Latvia, Sweden, and Romania are highest. So I think those two factors are actually correlated with each other. Also, a study that was developed by and was paid by Soros Foundation, yay! So basically they said that media literacy rankings are in the Balkans are very low. And they said that the Balkans are most susceptible for fake news. And if we look at the rankings, we can see like Romania, Serbia, Bulgaria, Montenegro, Albania, Turkey, Macedonia, all of them are like super, super low. And I think this is the correlation between the fact that in Romania at least, a lot of fake news have gained traction, and the fact that we've seen movements of Romania exit, like also Greece exit, and Brexit. But the problem is that in Romania, the threat of fake news is more real than ever. And how do we combat these facts? Well, there's like this night science journalism program at MIT, and basically they said, we conducted an overall survey of multiple publications, asking them, do you fact check your publications or not? And basically they found out that a lot of them, they don't have a quality control person. And furthermore, only 1/3 of them actually had fact checkers and researchers to do their fact checking before publishing. Other publications, all of them had like editors who were in charge of doing that, and 50% copy editors for the people who are actually doing fact checks. Furthermore, they were paid like $13, $15, $19, and the average was $13 per hour. This is really important because, you know, fact checking nowadays is the most important part of journalistic investigation. And not only investigation, or journalistic process. And if you don't have capable people doing fact checks, then you're doing something wrong. So, lastly, if we add in this mix about active measures, fake news, if we add the bots, and nowadays, current principles, we're gonna get like a pretty good image. And you might have heard about the troll factory. It was all about in the news like 2 weeks ago. Twitter published all their tweets from this troll factory. Read all the article, it's pretty interesting. This lady here, Kate Starbird, basically she said in her research that there are paid trolls sitting side by side somewhere in St. Petersburg, because that troll factory is in St. Petersburg, quoting each other. So basically there's this guy who infiltrated both opposition groups that were like, this could be like Democrats and like other groups, or like, it doesn't matter. Basically the idea is, you have two groups of people who are clashing and debating with each other. You infiltrate people in both groups, and then you start promoting your agenda. Why? Because of tribalism and confirmation bias. People in this group, they see that you are actually doing the same stuff they have the same views, and they're gonna actually trust you. Same happens with the people in this group. But you're the same person in both groups. And then what happens? You might actually have accounts that are have huge amounts of followers, like 100,000. You can't see it here, but it's like 100,000 followers who are actually being proven to be part of the disinformation campaign. And you know, this happens. Again, another way to do active measures is to silence people. So how can you do that? Basically, you block their views. If somebody is saying something wrong about you, you just block their views. So basically, if you country Romania, and it says like the Facebook account for this famous guy in Romania, I don't know if he's famous anymore, was blocked. And you know, it's pretty simple. If somebody is saying something bad about you, you just block him, you silence him, and then he's gone. No? And then this is pretty interesting. Let's play a game. You know, if I were to come to you on street and say like, I'll give you some money. Would you go with your Facebook account and report a page, whatever page I'm telling you? Would you do it? So raise your hand if you do it, if you report a Facebook page for €1. Okay. €2? 4? I go to you and say, like, I give you €4. Just report. It doesn't affect you at all. It takes 20 seconds. €10? Would you report it for €10? Nobody? Really? €20? Well, you have a winner. Nice, nice. Thank you, thank you. Let's a round of applause. Let's get a round of applause for the win. So €20. Yeah, you go to the people and then you actually get like, you know, report this page, report this page, report this page. And then if you want to have like 100 people or 1,000 people, the costs are $20,000. You know, it's nothing compared to the active measures cost of $9 billion. So that's it. Internet balkanization, please go. My dear friend, Ștefan Tănase, he's presenting about internet balkanization today. Don't miss his talk. Basically, the idea is, instead of having like a global network where proper checks can be implemented, you create your own internet local networks. For example, in Iran, they blocked Telegram and they created a new application called Soros. In Russia, instead of Facebook, you have VKontakte. You have Google, you have Yandex. In China, you have other search engines, and so on, so on. So this relates to the fact that if we don't consider these facts, and if we're not taking these facts into consideration, more and more countries will turn black. And this is the Reporters Without Borders, the Freedom Press Index for 2018, and I'm afraid that more and more countries will turn black. And then lastly, the last thing is about privacy. And then there are some definitions of privacy, but from my point of view, privacy is the state of being free from unwanted or undue intrusion, the freedom to be left alone. And this is very important. You might have the illusion of privacy. You might say, oh, my life is private, but then you're being monitored, all your communications is being monitored. So that's something that you have to protect against. But then there are other people who say nothing to hide argument. Basically, they say, my life is not important. Okay, I don't have anything to hide. I'm giving out everything on a clear plate. Here, take it. Then, this is a very, very dangerous slope. And then you should actually be careful about this. Because if you're willing to hand out your data on a free platter, then we have companies like Cambridge Analytica who are saying, sure, I'll take this data. I'll take as much data as I want. And then what do they do with it? They process the data and they try to target you with specific information in order to manipulate you. So don't give out your data. Try to be as restricted as possible. Else, these two events that I never thought would happen, happened. And Cambridge Analytica is kind of dead, or they changed the name, but there are other companies. So Advanced Symbolics, I've never heard about this one before my research, and basically they say they disrupt the industry and set new standards in behavioral research. Yeah, sure, behavioral research. I know what this means. It's like basically Cambridge Analytica. So check out this guy, this AI. They correctly predicted the vote in America yesterday. So they know their stuff. So is privacy dead? Is there anything we can do? I think there is. There is hope. So I think the first thing that we need to do, user education. The second thing we need to do, quality journalism. So media outlets, they have to have fact checks and they have to provide quality journalism. Secondly, user education, because it all starts from the users. There was a report that said that fake news was most spread by people and not by bots. So people spread the most fake news and not bots. And, there are other ways. Lithuanians also create an artificial intelligence. But in Romania, it's not like we can actually start creating this stuff. So basically what you can do, you can donate to people who do actually good quality journalism. So if you want to do it something good, if you want to combat fake news, if you want to fight it, donate to these guys. These are some really quality guys that are doing amazing stuff. And in the end, the information war is here. And the problem is that there was this Ask Me Anything Reddit, and then some with this the Romanian CERT team. And one guy asked, what are you going to do if Russia or somebody else will start a campaign to influence our elections? And they said, it's not within our capabilities. And then my question is, within whose capability is this one? Is it government? Is it public institutions? Who should protect against the threat of fake news? And maybe private companies like Kaspersky? I don't know. This is a question that I should answer. My job is here to give you more info, and maybe you can decide for yourself. But up until then, I'd like to thank all the people who helped me with this research. And by the way, the quote at the beginning was actually fake news, because the guy who said the information, this quote, is actually Nathan Rothschild. So take everything with a grain of salt and try to combat fake news. Sorry for being late. Thank you.
No worries, that was so intense. Thank you so much, Dan.
Sure.